The movie is only 4 months away. We finally have a full trailer. It is all aboard the Rogue One hype train. So I was away camping all weekend, and I came home to what is about as good a welcome home present as I possibly could have imagined with a full trailer for Rogue One. And holy shit, does this have me excited for this movie. This trailer was freaking incredible. From the beginning, we have this big establishing shot of this city that's located on top of some kind of plateau of sorts. That whole establishing shot was a little bit reminiscent to me of prequel trilogy type of establishing shots, only with sort of a color tone and a ruggedness that was reminiscent of the original trilogy, which is fitting because that's where this movie takes place, obviously. It looks like probably some of the reshoots involved the character of Saw Gerrera, because this time around he had hair, less of a wonky eye, and talked a little bit different than he did in the first trailer, and I kind of like that change in this one a little bit better than the first go around, so I'm gonna give kind of a thumbs up to them on that one. And then from there we kind of bounce around getting brief glimpses of a handful of the different characters, seeing as how it's somewhat of a large cast and there's going to be a lot of backstory and character development to establish. It's not too unlike the main trailer for The Force Awakens in that regard, in that trailer opened up with a little bit of info on Rey, then transitioned to info on Finn, told us a little bit about Kylo Ren before going into some exciting imagery and explosions and familiar things that we've seen and come to expect within the Star Wars universe, all set to some really exciting music. I think when it comes down to it, that's a formula that is going to work, especially in this case where they're introducing us to new characters within somewhat of a familiar setting. So they introduce us to these characters that are still somewhat of a mystery to us, whereas the overarching story that they're going to be involved in, we're already a little bit familiar with. We also get those glimpses of familiar imagery shown to us in new ways, and that is really, really exciting to see the Death Star doing things that we obviously never got to see it do because the Death Star was pretty much just in place. Seeing Star Destroyers in the detail that we see them, seeing a rocket launcher knocking the head sideways of an AT-AT walker, that is really, really cool imagery to show us, and that's part of what makes this trailer so cool, that it had a good balance of that familiar imagery with introducing us to these new characters that are going to be advancing this story within this already somewhat familiar universe. I guess maybe the biggest thing that gets me the most excited is seeing familiar imagery from the very first Star Wars movie, the movie that brought us into this entire universe, and seeing things like the Death Star in greater detail, seeing things like X-Wings taking flight yet again in somewhat of a familiar setting of the Rebel Alliance as we knew it, and seeing freaking Yavin 4 involved in this movie. I'm so freaking excited, and this trailer did everything I could have possibly wanted it to do to add to that excitement for me. And then of course there is Darth Vader, but I think it says something about the overall quality of the rest of this trailer, given that every time I've watched it, probably 16 or 17 times now, I get so wrapped up in the excitement of the rest of the trailer and seeing these familiar things and getting to know these brief introductions to the new cast that we are given, that every time around I forget about that little part at the end with Vader, so it gets me excited and pumped up all over again every time I've watched it. Anyway guys, if you can't tell, I obviously loved this trailer. I thought they did a fantastic job of giving us those brief glimpses to a handful of different characters about what they're all about and where they're going to sort of factor in to this somewhat familiar story within a very familiar timeline of the Star Wars universe that obviously leads up to the entire events of the original trilogy. I'm incredibly excited, and we are only 4 months away, which is freaking sweet. So anyway, whatever thoughts you have, I'm eager to know. Please feel free to leave them in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and my fanboy ranting over this new trailer, please leave a like, click that like button. I always appreciate that. But above all else, everybody, thanks so much for watching.